all of you to our weekend talk show, Knowledge is Power. Today, we are going to have a little talk about knowledge management practices of a reputed industry, which forms a crucial segment of the economy and accounts for 55% of the total export revenue. It is none other than Sri Lankan tea industry. For our discussion, here we have 4 experts from tea industry who have been working as executives in this industry for several decades. Good morning, Mr. Chamath Thilakarathna, Mrs. Ashini Isara, Mrs. Shehani and Mrs. Nipuni Peiris. Warmly welcome you all to our program. My very first question goes to Mrs. Ashini. Mrs. Ashini, can you explain how knowledge creation, capturing and codification are being applied in the tea industry?
First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this program. I will start my explanation by defining knowledge. Knowledge is a highly valued state in which a person is in cognitive contact with the portion of reality. Throughout the tea industry, knowledge creation, sharing, capturing, and codification can be seen. There is a unique tea manufacturing process in Sri Lanka for decades. Black tea, green tea, white tea can be identified as 3 types of tea in the Sri Lankan tea industry. The production process of each type of tea varies from type to type. To produce tea, companies use technology, expert knowledge gathered over years and worth of experience. The continuity of knowledge management is with knowledge sharing. It is debatable whether the whole knowledge created within the tea industry can be shared or not. To some extent, knowledge can be shared, but there is a tacit part of knowledge that cannot be shared or codified into explicit knowledge. Extracting knowledge from individuals and writing it somewhere and keeping it somewhere like in articles, user manuals, and computer systems is what codification of knowledge means. We can see a lot of books written about tea plantations, articles about the tea industry, and the websites of the tea producing companies. According to Nonaka and Takeuchi's knowledge creation theory, externalization, internalization, socialization, and combination are the 4 modes of knowledge creation. When tacit knowledge is converted into explicit knowledge, it is called externalization. CeylonStore.com is an online store selling Ceylon tea products directly from Sri Lanka. They have codified some recipes regarding making cup of tea, including the ingredients and the directions. The culture of the tea plucking women is if the parents of those families engage in the tea plucking, their children will also be engaged in it. Their elders are well experienced in tea plucking, and by going to the estates with them and observing them, anyone can learn the way of plucking tea. That's how the tacit knowledge possessed by experienced tea pluckers is accessed by the newcomers to the plucking area, and it's the socialization explained by Nonaka and Takeuchi. Tea making factories use knowledge capturing tools like interviews, brainstorming, and the Delphi method to capture the knowledge. After capturing the knowledge, most of the companies engaged in tea making and exporting have introduced innovations, and we all can experience them even now.
Thank you, Mrs. Ashini. Next, I turn to Mr. Chamath. Mr. Chamath, what do you think as the key knowledge management practices used in tea industry and how are they being applied?
Okay, there are so many knowledge management practices that are related to tea industry. So before answering your question, let me divide my answer to mainly 3 parts. First, I'm going to talk about HRM practices. After that, I talk about organization culture and leadership. And finally, about ICT practices. When I talk about HRM practices, tea industry is a combination of tea plantation, tea factories, and offices. And therefore, the employee force also can be divided into mainly 3 categories as tea pluckers, factory workers, and office staff. According to the work done by them, the knowledge they have gained may vary among employee categories. Hence, their tactic knowledge is more powerful than the explicit knowledge in tea industry. They should always try to retain skilled, well-experienced workers within their organization. For that, tea companies implement safety, satisfaction, growth, and development related practices. Having a good communication system is a must in knowledge management in tea industry because 2/3 of the employee force are Tamil. Further, strong relationship between workers and management and effective interactions and negotiations on factory, industry, and country level promote good working conditions and thereby support the knowledge sharing and capture. When it's come to the organization culture and leadership, we can identify that they have taken an effort to establish knowledge management practices through the culture within their industry. In Sri Lanka, most of the tea pluckers are Tamil people in Sri Lanka. They live in tea estate, which is like a home to them. There is a separate kovil for them to worship, a school, a doctor, an attendant to take care of the children. So there is a strong culture within tea pluckers, as all of them belong to the same nationality, as well as all of them face same difficulties in their lives. So they would share their knowledge with each other. The knowledge about the industry would create within them, and there is no specific way of capturing and sharing their knowledge. When mother works, she eventually teaches her daughter about how to pluck tea. If father works in the factory, his son would also learn to work as a factory staff by learning through looking at his father. And finally, when we look at the ICT side, it has seen the modernization due to the revolution of information technology. This is not limited to this industry alone. Every industry in the production sector have seen significant changes in practices and have modernized to achieve new heights. Some of the systems that most of the companies in the industry use are enterprise planning systems and inventory management systems, cloud computing, financial accounting system, and R&D. For an example, inventory management software is crucial to the tea industry for managing tea leaves and finished tea packet stock. These are some of the knowledge management practices that relates to the tea industry in Sri Lanka.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chamath. The biggest challenge we had to face recently was the COVID-19 pandemic. Mrs. Shehani, did any change take place in the knowledge management practices of tea industry during COVID-19 period?
Yes, during the COVID-19 period, various changes took place in various practices within a business. So let me explain to you how KM practices of the tea industry have changed during this period. Tea industry has maintained pandemic protection mechanism for their safety. Due to the social distance, emergency laws, and unhealthy situation of employees, field and factories, staff don't have the opportunity to work together as usual. Also, office staff has to work from home. As a result of that, top level and middle level managers lost the opportunity to get new ideas from their employees and monitor their work, as well as lower level employees were unable to capture knowledge from their top level managers. So COVID-19 is badly affected to the organizational knowledge creation. And also, space was essential. Before COVID-19, industry used shared physical space where face-to-face collaboration was happening. With the arrival of the corona pandemic, industry focused on shared virtual space, where group-based communication virtual employees could connect with each other through Zoom, Microsoft Teams, emails, or any other social media apps. Accordingly, knowledge creation, capturing, and sharing process of the industry was changed because of this COVID-19. Community pluckers of the plantation gave a prominent place to their religion, but due to the social distance, limit chance to share religious values, knowledge, and customs among them, and limit to communicate ideas with each other. At the same time, they took several actions such as downsizing the organization process by laying off some employees, reduction of salaries, wages, incentives, rewards of existing employees. Due to these reasons, there were negative impact on knowledge management framework, such as increased turnover of skilled, well-trained employees. Existing employees are not committed to knowledge sharing, decreased employee motivation for knowledge acquiring activities, limitation of knowledge sharing to upper level, lower level work due to employee gap, and decreased employee physical engagement. So this is how care practices change with COVID-19 period.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Shehani, for your valuable ideas. Then my last question, I would like to ask Mrs. Nipuni. Mrs. Nipuni, do you have any arguments based on the theories you have learned, and what are the suggestions you have for a better knowledge management environment in tea industry?
Yes, Teshani. When it comes to arguments, when there is a strong culture, employees would sense that they have a collective identity. But in tea industry, field staff, factory staff, and office staff have separate cultures within themselves. So knowledge sharing would happen within those separate cultures. The second one is, although the most effective leadership style to promote KM practices within an organization is transformational leadership, it is arguable whether the tea industry have adopted that practice. Individualized consideration of employees is one of the key components of transformational leadership. But when we take tea industry, tea pluckers play a vital role, but the wages paid to them is very low compared to employees of other industries in Sri Lanka. And under theory of recent actions, we learned that group identity gives a recognition to teams and it will create positive social norms. But in tea industry, sometimes formations of groups create some negative social norms too. Further, social dilemma theory states that if knowledge is shared, it becomes a public good. But people don't share their knowledge unless they receive any benefit. But in tea industry, knowledge is shared by employees within getting any economical benefit too. Then when it comes to suggestions, we have sort of suggestions. The first one is developing a central knowledge hub and storing all the gathered knowledge in that hub. Then giving rewards and incentives based on knowledge value creation capabilities, promoting innovations and creativity, encourage capturing and retaining top talent to management layer by restructuring the recruitment process, and a dashboard system can be introduced for the ease access to database and for frequent reviews. Those can be identified as suggestions.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Nipuni. Now we have come to the end of our program. Again, I would like to thank Mr. Chamath, Mrs. Ashini, Mrs. Nipuni and Mrs. Shehani for your valuable contribution. So let's meet again on next weekend. Till then, goodbye everyone.